Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Friday edition of the Angela Ray Show. Yes, it is the weekend, baby, and I hope that you have some great plans that include wearing a mask, social distancing, and washing your hands. As always, whenever you get on the broadcast, if you're going to be one of our live viewers tonight, make sure you check in the comments. Let me know where you are watching from for all of our replay viewers. Thank you so much for checking out the Angela Ray Show. This is the final installment of my 5-part series entitled In the Kitchen. Throughout the week, I have had an array of very talented chefs to share their knowledge and their journey on how they got in the kitchen. And tonight will be no different. I'm going to give you all of my live viewers just a moment or two to get on the broadcast. And hopefully, I will give the person whose car alarm is going off right now in the middle of my broadcast a chance to go ahead and turn that car alarm off. Again, it's the Angela Ray Show. Go ahead and get on the broadcast, and we'll be getting started in just a moment. Hey, Shelton. Glad you could catch us live tonight. Yeah, there's a story behind why I'm wearing this shirt tonight, Edwin. It's tied into my rate of motivation moment, but yeah, had to represent for my Tar Heels tonight. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started with tonight's broadcast. And for our Ray of Motivation moment tonight, I just want to remind you to pursue your passion. Yes, I am wearing Carolina blue tonight in honor of Mr. Vince Carter. Vince Carter is the final player in the NBA to retire who was coached by the great Dean Smith. And he played for 22 years in the NBA and spanned 4 decades. I think it's safe to say that Vince was pursuing his passion. And when you pursue your passion, it's not like you're even working. You know that you are on purpose every single day. Just want to remind you, especially as we continue to navigate uncertain waters during this pandemic, to pursue your passion. And that is your Ray of Motivation moment for this Friday edition of the Angela Ray Show. Well, I am really excited to have my next guest on the show for this last in my series on In the Kitchen. He is the owner of Chef Segreto Personal Chef Services, where he operates that in both the Miami, Florida area as well as Colombia. So please help me welcome Chef Julian Grajales. Julian, welcome to the Angela Ray Show. Are you there? Well, hey, y'all, my mom is joining us tonight. Hey,
Yeah.
mama. How are you,
Hey Angela,
Julian?
how are you?
I'm doing good. So
I'm
you had
fantastic.
Yeah, so you're in South Florida right now. I know you've been going back and forth between South Florida as well as Colombia. And of course, Florida is back open. So you have clients that you're working with there. But prior to everything opening back up, how are you spending that time in social distancing?
Well, it's really tough because, as you might know, besides a chef, I'm also a personal trainer. And my line of work is always being very close to clients in terms of training and also hands-on cooking and personal chef services. So it's actually it's been really tough the last, I'll say 3 months and a half probably. Try to kind of like get into new ideas and how to teach people how to, train all my clients, and then also how to teach them how to cook and do stuff. It's been fun at the same time, but um, it's challenging. I mean, I don't know how to speak because it's kind of it's really tough, when you have to show something or somebody how to do things, and then you have to show them virtually using Zoom or FaceTime, and it's tough. It's very challenging.
So how did you when did you kind of get on board with doing things virtually? Because I'll be honest, I was kind of I was a little I was stuck for about 3 weeks where I kept thinking, is this real life? Because at the beginning, it was like, oh, we're going to play basketball with no fans. Then it was like, oh, no, there's not going to be basketball. Then it was like, oh, no, there's not going to be baseball. And it was like, I kept
Right.
waiting for the next shoe to drop. Like, what? We're not going to have the NCAA tournament? But that's only because Carolina wasn't going to be there. That's my story, and I'm sticking to
That's the story.
it. But yeah, were you able to adjust quickly, or did it take you some time?
It took me some time, probably like 2 weeks, trying to realize that this was a real thing. I thought it was like, oh yeah, after the 2 weeks gonna be over, relax, and then I'll see, all the stay-at-home order. I mean, here in South Florida, in Colombia as well. So now it became real. So okay, so I told myself and to my wife that we need to do something. This is it seems like it's not gonna end soon. So we have to continue, uh, evolving and then trying to figure out how to maintain my clients, because that's the tough part, because I mean, there's a lot of competition in this line of work,
Yeah.
training and personal chef. And then once you have a client, you have to do whatever it takes to keep that client in your portfolio, if you will. And then that's when it comes, the virtual stuff. And you need trying to do as best as you can, and it's tough. I mean, I still, for me, very challenging when I try to do, especially a training online, using a camera is really hard, because you want to explain that person, how to have a correct posture and things like that. And then it's tough when you're not there trying to, make sure that the client has, a proper, posture and things like that. And I mean, also as a chef, I mean, you can teach how to people how to cook, but if you're not there, it's not. I mean, it's not. I mean, I don't know. It's just me. It's not gonna happen.
Not ideal. It's definitely been different. I
It's
mean,
not.
even
It's
it's
tough.
different. Yeah. Like even for me hosting, I mean, you know that I'm used to hosting
Right.
in person and engaging an audience. And, I do have an audience here and I do get to see their comments. As a matter of fact, I just saw your wife tell me hello. And so, it's nice to have that, but it's not quite the same. But it looks like we may be here for a little while. And I'll share with the
Right.
audience, Julian is in his car because he's working in South Florida right now, but he can't actually be in like a cafe because you have to be like outside. So and it's a very interesting time.
It's very interesting, and then you can see people like doing Zoom, and in their bathroom. I mean, like they're trying to get away, because remember, the entire family is in the house, so to find a quiet place is really tough, especially when you have little kids and dogs. I mean, it's tough. So you have to go to the car, you have to go to the bathroom, you have to go to your basement to trying to get away.
I think you may be stuck just a little bit. If you can still hear me, Julian, I think maybe your internet connection just maybe flicked a little bit on you because I heard you talking about going to the bathroom to get on a Zoom so that you could have some privacy, and then you got stuck. maybe if you can still hear me, maybe you might want to leave the broadcast, come back in, and we'll see if that gets you. All right, we're having some technical difficulties. It happens all the time, as I have been watching major national news programs go through what we're all going through, and that is broadcasting from home, sharing content from home. I see the same thing. So we're going to give Julian a moment or two to get back on. I do want to give everyone who's on the broadcast right now, so you heard it here first, come a little bit closer to the screen, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. All right, are you all ready? Next week, I kick off a 5-part series on wellness. And I am truly excited about it because I feel like right now, focusing on wellness and not just being well, healthy or physically, but overall wellness is so important. We've been inundated with all kinds of tragic news over the past 2 to 3 months, not only for our health in terms of COVID, but definitely dealing with the racial unrest that is happening in our country. And frankly, people are worried. There are people who are strapped financially. And so I have put together a great roster of wellness professionals in so many different areas. And so I am really excited for you all to get introduced to them. I know that I'm ready to learn, as I have learned this week from all of the chefs who have been on sharing their wealth of knowledge. Everything from me finding out from Chef Christina that, maybe agave is not the best sweetener for me. And I believe one of our longtime supporters, Mr. Edwin Evans, asked that question about agave. So I learned something new. And even, I believe it was last night or the night before last, I learned a little bit about sprouted flour. So I'm excited to talk to our guests, to share them with you, but I'm also excited to learn what I can learn from them as well. So I think Julian may be ready to join us again. Are you ready, Julian? Yes, I think.
Yes, I am. I got frozen for one
Okay.
second.
Yeah, you got frozen for a second, but we're back. So right, you were talking about, the challenges of, this time and trying to work virtually. You, like many, there have been quite a few chefs that I talked to this week. You're self-taught. They didn't go to a culinary school, but they learned on the job and they learned by trial and error. When did you know that you wanted to be a chef?
Well, all started like back in 1999, and then my mom and my stepdad, they wanted to have a restaurant here in Miami. So my mom had a cousin in Sebring. It's a little town very close to Orlando in Central Florida. He had a Italian restaurant. So they sent me, oh, you need go there and learn how to do pizza, how to do pasta, and then you come back and then we'll start a restaurant. That was the idea. I didn't know I was actually trying to get a major in marketing and international business administration. But then started working in this restaurant, and then I found my passion. I really loved it. Loved how to make pizza. I loved how to cook, for people. And then it's like something sparking inside of me. It's very, very, very interesting. And then I came back to Miami, and then the restaurant with my family didn't happen. But then I started working in a hotel. It was a Westin during that time, and from there it took off. I wanted to go to culinary school, but all my executive chefs say do not go to culinary school. That's a waste of time. And then I kind of took that advice, and they say everything you need to learn we can teach you for free here. I mean, you need to have only passion and a good attitude and discipline, and you will get it quick. Because I mean, it was kind of natural, the cooking part and then the flavors and all that stuff. It was part of my I guess my calling, I'll say. And then I had the fortune to have great mentors, from different countries, like chefs from Spain, chefs from Thailand, chefs from Japan, American chefs as well. So I got different, styles, and then that was part of my, let's say, my building moment, throughout my culinary life.
Okay. And what would you describe as your specialty?
I got two. I cannot decide, but one is Floridian. Floridian,
Okay.
which is a like a fusion between South American and Caribbean food, and pretty much that's the food that is being served here in Miami. And then the other one is Mediterranean, but by the part of South Spain, North Africa. Because often people hear Mediterranean start thinking about Greek food and Turkish food, but Mediterranean food is very wild because you have North Africa, you have South of France, you have Israel, you have Tunisia. So it's different parts of the Mediterranean. I like to cook North Africa, like Moroccan and Ethiopian food, and South Spain. That area right there, which is a lot very earthy flavors and a lot of lamb, a lot of game, things like that.
Okay. And I'm assuming cumin is one of those spices that you like.
Oh yeah, I love cumin. Yeah, absolutely.
You introduced me to cumin, and now I buy it and I use it all the time.
The smell, the flavor. I mean, you can use it in salads if you want. Trust me.
Yeah, I actually use it in my. I make a vinaigrette and I use my cumin in my vinaigrette. So yeah,
Nice.
it's been a nice little trick to have in my back pocket. Now, you were talking
Absolutely.
earlier about working with clients, you know, training them on Zoom, but you're also a chef. How do you now? I can see like how it would work if I was looking to change my body. I could go to you, get personally trained, and then you could help me with my eating plan. But how do you balance all of that in terms of a business?
It's funny because the fact that I have those two businesses both have high and low seasons. So when one business is in the high season, the other one is in low season. Which is, for example, in personal chef services, the high season is here in South Florida, especially, is from October to January. And those are actually is when people start slowing down their training because it's approaching to the holidays, and they don't want to spend too much money in this and that. But the other people are trying to do events and things like that. So that's how I balance it. Now, when it comes to summer, most people want to, at the beginning of the year and then summer, people want to train a lot and then not as much as doing events and parties. So that's actually pretty much how I work it out. And then most of my clients, they use me for both. For private cooking and private, like homemade meals, and then that connect that to the training. So I know what they're eating and what they're, type of training I'm doing as well.
Okay, you have a question from one of our loyal viewers, Edwin. Can you read that on the screen? If not, I can, because I know sometimes it's small when you're looking on your phone.
It's pretty small, actually. I'm trying to
Okay,
focus
I
there.
got it for you. What traits do you need to be successful in the culinary and hospitality industry?
Okay, that's a great question, actually, because I had the same question one time. And then first thing you need to learn is how to do a good breakfast cook.
Oh,
Yeah. When I was a chef in a restaurant, and then the first thing that I asked obviously is what experience you have, and then once they tell me what a breakfast cook for 5 6 years, he was in the team right already, because breakfast cooks actually they're very disciplined, they always show up, and they're super fast in the line. If you say I want to be good in the kitchen, you better start in a breakfast restaurant like IHOP, Dennis, Waffle House, things like that. Nothing fancy at the beginning, but they're very, very, very good to learn skills and how to time yourself and how to be fast.
interesting. So, what would you say has been your most successful food event thus far? Whether it's a big event, small event. Ooh, I think that Julian is stuck again. All right, Julian, if you want to, you can log back off and log back on. So that was actually great advice. I never would have thought that breakfast, working in a breakfast restaurant or a restaurant that's, specializes in breakfast would be a great way to get your training, to get you up to speed. But it does make perfect sense. Oftentimes, people who come in for breakfast are usually at the top of the day, they're a little bit more rushed than people who come in and want to chit chat and talk and enjoy dinner. Now, lunch, of course, if you're working in corporate, lunch is one of those times when, yeah, people have to get back to work. All right, Julian, we're going to see if we can get you back on. Yeah, there we go. So you were just talking about, I know you were answering the question about, training, what were the best traits to have in terms of the culinary and hospitality industry. I think the last thing that we heard from you was talking about working in a breakfast restaurant because you get your timing and you get your skill set up really quickly.
Right, you get your timing, and timing is key in the kitchen, and that's one of the things that you don't learn that in school. You have to have experience,
Okay.
because it's not the same thing cooking for one person at home, or your mom and whatever. When you're in a restaurant, you have several things coming in, like in the line, especially for line cooks. So you need to know how to time yourself so you are always on time with food. You're not late. And then breakfast. One thing that you learn in breakfast restaurants, and you don't have redemption. You don't have second chances in breakfast restaurants. What that's supposed to mean? For example, if I have a client ask me for an over easy, you break the yolk, you're done. You have to start all over again. That's what. So you have to be really good cook to be in a breakfast restaurant, especially high pace, like a Denny's, like a Waffle House. When people ask you for over easy, people ask you for stuff, and everybody's in a rush. You see, when you go to a restaurant, if you go to if you go breakfast, you want in and out as fast as, because you go to work, things like that. When you go at dinner at night, you want to sit down, drink wine, you order appetizers. So it's a different type of restaurant, different type of pace. So that's just me. That's just my experience. Breakfast cooks are the best cooks, there is. Now, also you need to learn how to work in banquets. So working in banquets also gives you a lot of experience because banquets uses a different techniques of cooking. But not again, it's not the same as a restaurant because in banquets you have to cook, different bigger batches of food ahead of time. Um, Also, there's no redemption because, for example, if you're cooking, for 100 people party and then you burn the rice or you kill all the steaks in the oven, you're done. It's nothing. I mean, you're done. I mean, you can start all over again. It will take an hour to get ready again. So those are the two different areas, breakfast cook and banquet cook that will make, will give you good timing. It will give you good techniques. It will also give you a lot of learn how to tolerate stress because both of them are very stressful. And then it's something like if you're thinking to if you're thinking to go to culinary school or become a cook or chef, you need to understand that you need to love this because it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of hours, working hours, and then and it's super hot. It's hot and humid all the time. It doesn't get better.
Inside people's kitchens, I can imagine it would be. What would I think I was just about to ask you this question. What would you say has been your most successful food event thus far, whether that's a big or a small event?
Um, I had actually one that I was very proud of myself. It was a wedding.
Okay.
And yeah, and the bride actually cried because the food was so amazing. She was, yeah. I mean, you think like I'm afraid it's not a big deal, but I think it is because especially in a wedding, they want everything to be perfect. They want the music to be amazing. They want the flowers to be gorgeous. But also, people only remember the food. They don't remember how the bride was, how the party was. They only remember how the food and the cake was. And that's the reality of every single wedding or party per se. And then she at the end she started crying, bawling, and said, "You made my wedding so special because And it was only like 25 people. It wasn't like a big deal, but I made sure that everything was phenomenal. Best ingredients, super fresh seafood and things like that. And then she loved it. And then somehow like you make people happy, and then that makes me happy. That's what I actually like cooking more than anything else. I always tell my wife and my family I can't do this without even getting paid because I like to see people's faces when they eat my food. Almost like the Ratatouille movie, that moment when the critic was eating. I like that. And then every single cook or chef, like a real, like, they love this. They looking for that moment. They wanna. It's not only creating a experience, but just bringing back a memory. That's the hardest part because people talk about creating experiences, bringing back a memory, that's the toughest one. It's like, for example, when sometimes you walk close to a bakery and you remember that bread that your grandma used to make, or when you were a little kid and you used to live in this street, and then they bake these cupcakes or muffins and they smell exactly the same like 30 years later. When you achieve that, then you know that you touch somebody's heart.
Wow. I had not thought about cooking and doing what you do in the culinary arts in that way, that you can really touch somebody's heart with food. But there is that saying, "A way to a man's heart is through his stomach." So I don't know why I hadn't
Ah,
thought
yeah,
about
absolutely.
that.
My wife can attest to that.
So have you ever thought about creating a cookbook?
I have actually, I have, but I think it's not the right time yet for me.
Okay.
Um, I think because there's a lot of cookbooks out, there are a lot of culinary books out there, and then if I want to make a cookbook or a culinary book, has to be different, has to be special, and then I believe that I have to acquire more experiences, throughout life, because obviously I want to mix also the training part somehow, like make it more like a wellness book where you have food and you have fitness at the same time.
Okay. That makes perfect sense. Speaking of wellness and combining all of that in the cookbook, of course dietary needs are constantly changing. There was a time when you could pretty much cook anything, and as long as it was a good dish, people not only would eat it but could eat it. But now you have people who have gluten allergies, or people who are following special diets like the paleo or keto. How do you keep up with these trends?
Well, you have to read a lot. I follow couple nutritionists or dietitians, that they're like more like scientists, and they understand food and they understand wellness and they also understand fitness. Because I mean, I don't like to say that, but it's a lot of people like they call themselves nutritionists, and then it started like a new trends, but they're actually harming people's bodies. So you gotta be, I mean, you out there, I mean, you want to start a diet, or you need to be very careful what you're doing. What it works for me, it might not work for you. So I always, when clients ask me, "Oh, I want to start this diet," I say, "Hold on, I think you talk to a dietitian first, 35, or registered dietitian, and talk about that if it will might work for you, right?" But in the personal chef area, you need to understand, what ingredients not to use and which one you have to enhance in order to get a better quality. Because, for example, let's say people with celiac disease, the gluten free, that also affects a lot, your product, because you're not using wheat, you're not using a lot of stuff that, for example, the cream, or if you're doing a bisque, it hurts you a little bit. So you have to be very creative and understand about the chemistry of different products to have a great outcome. I have a hard time when not right now, but like let's say probably like 8, 10 years ago, when vegans are starting to show up, and I have any idea what vegan was. I didn't know what the heck what vegan is, and they understood that they don't eat dairy, and especially the dairy part. And then that was very challenging, because yeah, vegetarians, you can do a lot of things, and then you can involve cream, you can involve cheeses and stuff like that to kind of have a great meal. But then when they take that factor out, then you need to now is when you become creative. You know what I mean? So you have to be always trying things in your own kitchen. I mean, as a chef, you need to, you know, do things like, for example, remember that time that I did like chocolate mashed potato? Remember? That was my first
I
time, and I was
do.
like, that was good.
I do. I was thinking, now, did you also do the chocolate bacon, or was that not you?
No, that wasn't me.
That
I
wasn't you.
think
I
that
do
was
remember
Chef
those chocolate
Nita.
mashed potatoes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I used to, I mean, I love it still. Those challenges, because it makes you think. It makes you get out of the box, and that's what culinary is about. It's art. You want to make sure that I mean, yes, you want to follow some structure, but at the same time, that you want to always put your own input, your own feelings, and then your own experiences, and then also that's what you have to try. I always say, people, try in your kitchen. Go to your local supermarket, and then grab any item that you haven't used, or even or item that you haven't even seen before in your life, and just try it, and then look some of YouTube videos and stuff like that, and then try to create something with that. It might taste awful, but it might taste amazing. You
Yeah,
don't know.
like the chocolate mashed potatoes. Okay, Edwin has another question for you. The question is: you introduced Angela to cumin. What ingredient, tool, or item should we all have in our kitchen?
Tool, you should have a fish spatula.
Did you
That's
say
my favorite.
what is
It's a
that?
special fish spatula.
Okay,
So it's a tiny spatula, very thin, and has like holes in the middle.
okay,
So that's one of my favorite tools because that it helps you turn the fish obviously around, but also helps you if you don't know how to make an over easy and flip the pan without breaking the yolk. You can use that spatula. It's very
oh,
simple. Yeah, it's a very gentle spatula because it's super thin, it's flexible, and it has holes, so it lets kind of like doesn't create that suction. That's if you know what I mean.
yeah,
And then ingredient, you should have paprika.
okay.
Paprika is amazing. You can use it in soups and salads and steaks and fish and chicken. Even people use it on breads as well. So it's a good spice to have as well.
Regular or smoked? Because I just discovered smoked paprika
I
about
like
8 years
smoked.
ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
smoked my favorite, and then if you can find a smoked Hungarian paprika, they're pretty expensive, but they're amazing. It's amazing.
Oh, y'all
Yeah,
gonna have me buying so much stuff. Lisa earlier this week told me I needed a garlic press. You talking about a fish spatula? I'm familiar with the garlic press, but I was not familiar with the fish spatula. So very good question, Edwin. Now we
that
need to
was
go
very good.
shopping.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to go shopping now. So what's next for you? I mean, obviously you are navigating the pandemic like so many other people. But do you have other plans down the road, once we're like all off punishment?
Well, right now it's trying to, obviously trying to figure out how to survive
Yeah.
economically.
Hmm.
Obviously everybody is trying to provide for their families, trying to keep the business alive. That's the whole
Hmm.
idea. Because it's so much effort. You have all your dreams and all your savings and stuff put in these businesses, and then you want to make sure that they survive, right? But down the road, I have a couple ideas. In more for my personal studio. As a matter of fact, in Colombia, I started a studio, a fitness studio, very personalized. Everything is one on one, and then people get like a towel and the smoothie of the day. So it's more like a fitness and spa. So I have a lot of plans for that particular business
Hmm.
down in Colombia. Um, and then also here, I have something actually involved with Airbnbs. I have an idea actually with Airbnbs and chefs. So, but I don't want to throw my my white card out there.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to divulge too much with that, definitely. What would you say is the biggest myth that people have about culinary arts or being a chef?
I think the biggest myth is, and it's funny because it's gonna be sound very, like a cliche. I'll say, like Ratatouille, like what he said, like the little mouse, everybody can cook. So one myth that people say, like, oh, I can cook. Everybody can cook. I mean, it's just you need to try it. Because it becomes the same thing. Like when you want to be creative, and then you can do as well. You just have to develop your taste. Now, doesn't mean that, oh yeah, everybody can work in a line or in a restaurant. That's a different story, because it needs a lot of different skills, and then and passion. But just the factor that you can cook at home, you can do it for yourself, for your family, and everybody can do it. And then that's a myth, because I've met people and say, "Oh no, I don't know how to cook this," and they kind of like, "No, it's very simple." And I show them how to do it. And say, "Oh my God, this is simple, and it tastes so good, and it's so healthy." They say, "Yeah, you can do it. Take like 5 minutes. You just need to be willing to learn, and then follow, the instructions, and then follow your heart, follow what you want." there's not right or wrong. I mean, obviously, if you're in a French restaurant, yep, and they're expecting, a certain plate, obviously, you have to do the same way. But doesn't mean that somebody that does a different way doesn't mean it's wrong. You know.
Right. Definitely. Well, Chef Julian, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us. I got to put that fish spatula on my shopping list.
You must.
Hopefully, I will know what that is. Oh, looks like you have a fan. So maybe someone who sampled your food.
Oh yeah, I know, Grace.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, again, thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with us here on the Angela Ray Show and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Tell your family I said hello.
Thank you, Angela, for having me, and it's always nice to see you again.
All right. Thanks so much. Have a good night.
Okay, you too.
All right.
Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. All right, that is it for this Friday edition of the Angela Ray Show. As always, I would like to remind you of Ray of Motivation number 54. Cleaning a mirror will not change the person who is reflected in it. Until next time, I encourage you all to go out and be the change. Have a great